Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. We've got Nick Farabaugh on today. Aaron Rodgers was at Steelers minicamp. TJ Watt was not. We get our first impressions of Aaron Rodgers, including clips of him talking. We'll also talk about whether or not TJ Watt being there was a big deal. We get to all that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes. We bring your team every day. We bring your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when you hit on your first bet of $5 or more. More on them later. As I said before, we're joined by the man himself, Nick Farabaugh. He's back on the show. Nick, we got a chance to talk to Aaron Rodgers. It finally happened. He's there. He was in a Steelers uniform. We got to see him throw the ball around. Now, to provide some context, he did not do any team drills. It was all individuals. He said that was part of Mike Tomlin's plan. He wanted them to get used to things and get used to the offense before they started working him in team drills. We probably won't see that happen until training camp. But before we play the clip of Aaron Rodgers talking, Nick, what was your first impressions of just seeing him with the Steelers and, the mystique that we've always known of Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, it definitely feels a little different when you have Aaron Rodgers around. I think that was unmistakable, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was the same thing with Russell Wilson last year. Like, when Russ was there, it was like, oh, this guy's a little different, right? It's right. Russ. He's a Super Bowl champion. Rodgers, even more so. He's a Super Bowl champion and a four-time MVP. And
right.
Playing in the NFL since 2005. Like, he's been around forever. So, it's definitely a little bit different. If you would have told me that Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and Aaron Rodgers all would have been Pittsburgh Steelers in the point of the last 12 months, I think I would have called you crazy after the 2023 season. I think that's crazy. But just to see it, there's a few things I took away. One, he actually can move a little bit under center. Like, that was the one thing I thought like, okay, you can do the rollout game. You got the under center game. You got that in your back pocket. Obviously his release is legendary. He's got one of the best releases in NFL history. Just so quick. So it's like a whippy snap type release. So quick. So that stood out when you actually see it in person. In terms of the actual interview, when we talked with him, Chris, not anything like, a usual Aaron Rodgers. There was no, sometimes when he was with the Jets and with the Packers, we would see him take, kind of subtle pot shots at people. Nothing here that, he outright didn't take a shot at the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
Very much subdued, explaining his process, explaining, the personal issues, why now was the right time to sign. His relationship with Mike Tomlin, very clearly, very strong between those two. He reveres and respects Mike T. I think that's quite clear. And it seems like, honestly, I think when we talked to him, Chris, I did think there was some excitement in his voice. I think he is excited to play for the Steelers. And I think there's an intrigue there to come to the franchise. So those were just kind of my things. You can't take a bunch away from indie drills or an interview, but just kind of a few things that I noticed.
I agree there. I want to push back on something though. Whereas I don't think you or I nobody saw Aaron Rodgers coming specifically this year. I got to give a shout out to a guy I had on this show 4 years ago. It was his first appearance. He's been on here multiple times. Former Bills GM and Steelers front office man, Doug Whaley, literally came on the show and said, Art Rooney wants Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson as quarterbacks of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he went 2 for 2 back in 2021. This was October 13th, the October 13th, 2021 episode of the Locked On Steelers podcast. You can see me. I was coming out of straight of a Channel 11 appearance. You see me in my suit there, and you got me in my old studio that I had there. That's how long ago that was. But my man Doug Whaley called it, and now he's there. But that's neither here nor there now. I agree with you. No one really saw this coming this year after what has been transpiring. But let's cut to the chase. Let's get to Aaron Rodgers. He spoke at Steelers minicamp. I'm going to play some of the clips of some of the responses that he gave that I thought was really, really interesting about what he's bringing to the table with the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they're agreeing to. Here was Aaron Rodgers at Steelers minicamp.
What made now the right time to sign a deal and be here? I was dealing with a lot of things in my personal life, and some things improved a little bit where I felt like I could fully be all in here with the guys. I had a great conversation with Mike throughout the entire process, and Omar. But it's good to get that done and get behind me.
Aaron, why was the Steelers the right fit for you?
I think it starts with Mike Tomlin. I've been a fan of his for a long time. There's a few iconic franchises in the NFL. I played for one of them for 18 years. This is another one of those. There's something special about, obviously, this area. So many great quarterbacks are from Pittsburgh.
Kim Hayward talked on his podcast this morning about how important it would be to bring this morning. But he talked about the leadership that you could bring to the offensive side of the ball and how that'll be very important. How much of that was the conversation when you first talked with his team about what you can be as a leader here?
Well, I think I just want to be a servant leader here and just pass on the knowledge that I have for 20 years, the experience, and just try and fit in with the guys, get to know them, let them get to know me, and just enjoy the process. Everything's new. It's like the first day of school. I don't know a lot of guys' names. They don't have names on the back of the jerseys here. They don't have names on the doors in the meeting rooms. I literally walk out of the locker room lost, trying to grab somebody. Hey, where am I going? But I get the feel of it, and I'm excited about making this home.
You're kind of along those lines. After the way things unfolded last year, what do you feel like is different about this organization, about you physically, mentally, that will lead to more success here?
I'm not gonna take any shots at my previous organization. If that's what you're trying to get me to do. I'm just gonna talk about these guys. I like the opportunity here. I like the feel with the guys. I like how Mike T has been in the meetings. Tom Arth and I have known each other since 2006. He was in my quarterback room our first off season together. Still has the prettiest drop I've ever seen. So it's good to see him. Arthur I've known for a number of years. Obviously everybody in the Shannon Tree is close. Enjoyed our conversations over the last few months and the one-on-one times we've had in the meeting rooms looking at film and talking about the offense.
Aaron, you mentioned the Shanahan offense a couple times. Is the familiarity already with this system part of what made this an attractive destination?
That was part of it. Yeah, I liked Arthur. Obviously, I've known Tom forever. A big attraction was Mike Tomlin. I've gone against him over the years. The way that the conversations went between him and I, between whatever it was in March or April, and the last Sunday when I called him, was some of the coolest conversations I've had in the game. Definitely with the head coach. So he's a big reason I'm here. I believe in him and excited to play for him.
What do you know?
What makes you feel that way? Why do you say those things about Mike Tomlin? What has he kind of shown you or rubbed off on you in this?
No, we've had some great conversations, and I just appreciated the way that he treated me throughout the process.
What do you know of DK Metcalf and Pat Fryerman's game that makes you excited to work with them as pass catchers?
DK's been blowing me up for a while. We got to get together out west, but I've gone against him a number of times. He's big, athletic, fast, got great hands, ball skills. But the thing that really excites me the most is his character. I think he's a high character guy. I was teasing him the first conversation we had. He said, "Yes, sir," like 10 times. I said, "Is that because I'm 41?" Said, "No, that's how I talk." So I like his whole personality and his approach and the way he is on the field, his professionalism. Pat's been blowing me up mostly on DMs and on the gram, but I've had respect for his game for a while too. He was just teasing me about 2-minute starters there at the end, but I like the opportunity to work with all the guys in the tight end room. There's a lot of guys with different skill set. I told Darnell today I haven't had a tight end like him since Mercedes, and Mercedes all-time great. Darnell is like a young Mercedes, able to do things in the passing game, dominate the line of scrimmage. Connor had a really nice day-to-day, I thought, making plays. So there's a lot of guys in that room with great skill sets.
A lot of different things Aaron Rodgers said there that we clipped up, and there's more things that he said there as well that we could get to. I want to take a minute to address a few of those things. We'll do that next year, and as well as realistic expectations for how things are going to work with him and the Steelers. That's next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Don't go anywhere. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh. We will be right back. But first, I remind you this show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. The NBA Finals are underway, and things are getting crazy between the Pacers and the Thunder. It's going down every single night that these two teams clash. There are big stars making big plays, and you can get big wins with FanDuel Sportsbook as you bet on all the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live throughout the games with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever before to play smart and win big. With SGA, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, the Thunder have dominated all season, but the Pacers have Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam, and Benedict Mathurin, and they have plenty of stars who produce big numbers to place big bets on all throughout the NBA Finals. And if you're new to FanDuel, you can win $200 in bonus bets if you hit on your first bet of $5 or more. It's a great deal to take advantage of during the NBA Finals. Again, go to FanDuel.com. If you're new to FanDuel, place your first $5 bet, and if you hit, you'll get $200 in bonus bets right in your account. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. Nick, the reason my first question to Aaron Rodgers was about leadership and what was being asked of him, because, to me, that I thought that was a big part of what they might want from him when you look at what he can bring to the offensive side of the ball. As you and I have discussed, and many have discussed with many other people that have come on the show, the Steelers have been trying to redevelop an offensive nucleus of leadership since Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, Ben Roethlisberger left the organization all within a year or two of each other, and they have not been successful in those regards. However, I do think that they have a guy like Pat Freiermuth around, but they need to cultivate that, and I think Aaron Rodgers is a part of that. Now, Cam Hayward said the following words on his podcast that aired yesterday morning, Not Just Football. He said, "I think it's good," talking about signing Aaron Rodgers. I think he brings the leadership. Dude's a 4-time MVP. That's nothing to look over. Got a chance to meet him. He's very nice and approachable. Just excited to get down to business. He's going to teach a lot of the offensive players how to go about business, and that's what we need. And to me, Nick, I thought it was very interesting when that Cam Hayward's talking that way about him, and then you ask Aaron Rodgers, and he's like, "Look, I'm trying to lead by example." He's talking about, I'm trying to, he's not trying to just make everyone follow him. He's trying to play to what the Steelers are asking him to. And I think that's going to be very interesting to see how does that dynamic work, because I think if, you look at Aaron Rodgers and his history with the Jets, he got the Jets to bring in his guy, Nathaniel Hackett. He got the Jets to bring in, Alan Lazard and all these different guys. And they made all these moves. They made these things happen. And then, they blew up, and then it looked very much so that he was the guy that pushed out Robert Saleh. So I asked you, Nick, do you buy into Aaron Rodgers willing to be a part of the Steelers machine and that playing out positively throughout the year?
I mean, I think for now it'll work. As for when things get rocky in the season, I think we have questions then. But I think right now, there is enough respect between him and Mike Tomlin. Like, all due respect to Robert Saleh, he was a first-time head coach.
Very true.
And Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be able to push around Mike Tomlin in the organization as much as he was in New York. The Jets they're just not an organization that has had the success or the stability like the Pittsburgh Steelers. No matter where you think the Steelers are right now, and obviously the playoff drought's a big thing and all of that, Mike Tomlin is revered in NFL circles. I mean, I think everything Aaron Rodgers said today kind of explicitly showcases his kind of relationship with Mike T and his respect for him. I do think that will go a little bit longer than people might think, but do I buy into this being like, oh, completely smooth and we're getting Aaron Rodgers goody two-shoes through week 18? I kind of doubt that. We're going to have some rocky roads here, like there was another question that you didn't have in there where he was asked about taking over the offense from
the very last question. Yep.
And asked by Mike Pizzuta. And he said, he's never taken over an offense. I mean, clear as day he did take over the offense last year. It's not a secret. So that one, I don't think he'll completely take over this offense, but are we going to see more shotgun? Are we going to see some empty? Are we going to see some things that he really likes and is going to kind of audible into? 100%. But maybe that's going to be more collaborative here. Because the process that went into the Jets season last year, I mean, you hear some of the stories behind it and you're like, what were they even doing at the time?
Yeah.
You know? So at some points, you kind of understand why Rodgers stepped in because someone had to. It was like insane. But yeah, am I buying that, this is going to be completely smooth and Rodgers is just going to kind of go into the way back? I don't think so. As for the leadership part, I do think that'll help. And he's going to be willing to mentor Will Howard. I do think that is something that he has been willing to do over his career. I mean, he mentored Jordan Love, and Jordan Love was a first-round pick. And obviously, Jordan Love has turned into a really good quarterback. And so I do think that'll help Will Howard. So I do buy into the leadership part of it. I'm just not completely sure that, everything's going to be smooth sailing here. He's a great, he's a quarterback that has had pull in the past, and those quarterbacks generally kind of act like that. Ben had tremendous pull in the organization. What happens with this caliber of quarterback generally, even if he is no longer that caliber of quarterback?
See, here's where I do think that things could be different for Aaron Rodgers, and where I do think that there's also the potential of like, okay, let's see how this goes. Because I do think, and I talked about this with Alan before, and we've talked, like you said, the Steelers are not the Jets. The Steelers, as an organization, have a lot more things in place, protective just structures, where the Jets are just a dumpster fire. And like you go back and you read those reports from The Athletic about how Woody Harrelson's kid or whatever was making decisions, based off of Madden, and how there was just so much dysfunction there. And even with Robert Saleh, however good of a coach he might have been in a better situation, it made it untenable. And it made it easier for Aaron Rodgers to just kind of get frustrated there. That doesn't happen in Pittsburgh. Even with their, like you said, they haven't won a playoff game in ACs. I hear that. But you know what? They're always in it. And that's where I think that the problems came with the Jets, is that they weren't in it. They were a 5-win team last year. That's a disaster. I struggle to think the last year the Steelers won 5 games in a season. Was it 1988?
Yeah.
Like something like that. So it's been that long since the Steelers have even been that bad. And so I think that that's something that's going to be up. There's going to be more protective lines in place to keep Aaron Rodgers in a place where he doesn't feel he's going to have to lash out and do those types of things. However, when things go wrong, and they always do in a season, no matter how good you are. I mean, the Eagles had things go wrong last year in their Super Bowl season. How is he going to respond to that? Is he going to have patience with his teammates? Because we also know that Aaron Rodgers is very much a person to throw people under the bus. For example, in that clip, he was like, "I'm not going to trash my old team," but he very much did so on Pat McAfee just a few months ago. So it's not beyond him to say those things. And that's when I think it's going to be interesting to see, how do the Steelers maintain through that when he starts saying things that are detrimental and could be damaging to the brand and to the locker room and to the chemistry that has kept the nucleus of leadership that has been there. How do they respond? And I think that will test the fortitude of Mike Tomlin, of Art Rooney, this organization, of Omar Khan in this front office, and everyone above, to see, can they be that organization that they've always prided themselves in being, and not letting things blow up their situation?
Yeah, I mean, the red line comment last year towards Mike Williams when that loss to the Bills stands out to me as one of those notable examples where that happened. I will say it's not going to be as bad, I think, as last year with the Jets. He had to take over in some regards. He's not going to have to here, as you mentioned. But it could play out similarly. When he was with the Packers, for example, he would have tug of wars essentially with Matt LaFleur, trying to get influence here, influence there, and it got messy at times. I remember the audible situation between him and LaFleur was one going in from 2020 to 2021 that was talked about a lot, because that was a bit of a messy battle. So there will be a few of those, but you hope it kind of comes out to be where those forces end up kind of equalizing each other, and you find that right balance, right, between what Aaron wants and needs and what you can put in. And so there's a balance to find there. But yeah, I think that's going to be a big point. When things go wrong, Chris, and as you said, they will go wrong at some point.
Mm-hmm.
They face too many good teams to not have things go wrong. And we will see kind of how Aaron Rodgers and how the Steelers respond to that. Because that'll be a big part of how this works and how this locker room kind of coalesces over the season.
I agree with you. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, and see how Aaron Rodgers does, rides the roller coasters of the ups and the downs of the season. But I think the cool thing is right now they don't have to worry about that. He's in minicamp. He's going to do the individual workouts. As he expressed, he's not expected to do team things during minicamp. They're going to bring that in for training camp. So I'm interested to see how does he continue to handle it. How does the team handle it moving forward, and what versions of this offense do we start to see even when training camp gets here and it gets hot and you're around each other every day, and how that works out. All that's going to be very interesting to see it play out. But the other thing that needs to play out is TJ Watt, who wasn't at minicamp because DK Metcalf was, Darius Slay was, Juan Thornhill was, all the other new guys that the Steelers signed, they showed up. But TJ Watt still a no-show, and it looks like he's going to be a no-show for all of minicamp. We'll talk about that next here and whether or not that's a big deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chris Carter, Nick Farabaugh, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by the Skylight Calendar. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. How often do plans get missed because they're buried in a digital calendar or not written down at all? Would seeing your whole week clearly on a 15-inch HD screen help you stay focused and feel less overwhelmed? Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's skylighthtcal.com/NFL. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter here with Nick Farabaugh of PennLive.com. Nick, your reaction to when you learned that TJ Watt wasn't going to be at minicamp, and whether or not you think this means there's big trouble on the horizon for Omar Khan.
I mean, I'm not surprised by it at all. I think big trouble in terms of like his future in Pittsburgh. No, I think this is going to get done. But it's not going to go as smooth as they probably hoped. I'm sure they thought that this could be done much quicker. I think the Myles Garrett contract threw a complete wrench in this, Chris. I really do. If Crosby's, $35.5 million per year number with his guarantees was still the market, I think this deal's done. Honestly, I think this deal's done. But now that the top of the market's $40 million with $83 million guarantee out of a 4-year contract, that's a lot of money to pay a 31-year-old to be edge rusher. And so I think all of that is kind of coming here. This will get done at some point. But the numbers, the guarantees, the amount of guarantees heading into the late years, the structure, the average period, all of that is really, I think, much more complicated. And more importantly, Chris, they have urgency behind this because Micah Parsons, Aiden Hutchinson, and Trey Hendrickson are all due to get paid probably this summer before the season. And if one of them gets paid, specifically Parsons, that really ups it even more. And so this guy has to get done sooner rather than later. That's the tough part, I think, here.
So I hear that, and I agree that could be a hang-up. But I want to counter with something that Alan Saunders said on his own stuff. He brought up this very good point. He said it shouldn't counter what it probably he thinks it won't counter or complicate things because Micah Parsons is in a different stage of his career than TJ Watt. Myles Garrett did because they're literally of the same class. But Hutchinson and Parsons, those are guys that are at the stage where TJ Watt was last time, and he thinks that that's where they're coming from. And I hear Alan's point on that, but I also hear your point. For the Steelers, you just want to remove the complications, get it done. And in my opinion, I think it would behoove the Steelers to try to get this done sooner, because then here's the other thing: you get something done earlier in the process, then you get it. Then everyone else is still looking at your deal as they're having to make their deals. But also, you now know how much money you have to play with when it comes to finding that wide receiver too that you want, and that's because with extensions you're going to be able to open up more cap space. So I'm with you on this, but I also hear Alan's point. I don't think Alan's wrong per se. It's just differing perspectives here. Yeah. But I hear both of both sides of this argument of when to get things done and the urgency of it, because that could play a big role in this.
Yeah, I mean, countering Alan's point, while that is true, you don't know how TJ is going to view that. TJ very well could say it doesn't matter. I want what Micah wants, right? Mike gets 42. Well, now I want 42. You never know, right? But I do think, when we talk about Myles Garrett specifically, Myles Garrett's only 1 year younger than TJ.
Yeah.
The fact that is a thing. They are in the stage of their career. Trey Hendrickson, obviously that situation is very ugly with Cincinnati right now, but they're exactly the same age. They're both 30 years old.
That's
so
true.
that is all kind of wrapping in together. So regardless, I think, of how you view Parsons and Hutchinson, who, I mean, I guess Parsons is probably going to break Garrett's number. We'll see where Hutchinson pops in. But I do think Hendrickson is one to watch. See where he comes in. Does he come in more on the Crosby scale, or does he come closer to Myles Garrett's number? Because I think that would push TJ to kind of either come down or go up, et cetera, et cetera. But the Steelers, I think, just have to have an urgency to get this done. I think, they've already probably waited a little too long, Chris, which is kind of crazy because I'm not sure any of us saw the Myles Garrett mega extension coming in when it did, because that was a crazy curveball. But they would have been able to get it done, I think, if Max Crosby's number was the number. I don't think that would have been hard at all. I think they would have paid 36, had the guarantee structure. It would probably have been done already, or would have been done after minicamp like Minka's and Highsmith's was. This one's more complicated now that you have those enormous guarantees. $83 million guaranteed to Myles Garrett. That's a lot of money to a guy that's going to be 30-plus at edge rusher. I mean, TJ's not the same type of edge rusher as Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett is a very, very athletic one, but he wins with a lot of power. TJ's a speed rusher, which makes it even a little bit more complicated in that regard. So is it going to get done? Yes. But is it going to be smooth? I don't think so. But it would, I think, behoove the Steelers to get this done sooner rather than later.
Now, I will say this too. Also, the Bengals are really going through it because not only you got Trey Hendrickson, the guy who they drafted to be the next Trey Hendrickson, Shamar Stewart, he's not showing up in the camp because he doesn't like how they're handling his rookie contract. Like he was like, I'm probably within my rights. They gotta be reasonable. I'm not doing nothing crazy here. That's a mess over in Cincinnati right now. That's a whole. But no, go ahead.
Yeah, they're doing whatever they're doing. Then Shamar Stewart came out today. I don't know if you saw the quote. Said that they would rather win arguments than win games.
That is so nuts for a rookie to say about an organization that just drafted him in the first round. Like, whoo, that's a tenuous situation over there. But bringing it back to the Steelers, to your point, I do think, there's question there. And I do think that it could get right. I mean, J.J. Watt's been going on Pat McAfee's show and talking about this indirectly for months now. But I do think there is a sense that, like you're saying, at the end of the day, they are going to get this done. And I want you guys to hear Denzel Martin, Steelers outside linebackers coach, talk about a few things, but also including T.J. Watt, and hear the certainty in his voice that, like, man, TJ's going to be in here. We know what it is. Here's Denzel Martin, Steelers outside linebacker coach.
Obviously, I'm sure you'd like to have TJ here, but what kind of opportunity is it for a young guy like Jack or any of the other pass rushers?
That's right. All the other guys, Eku, Jules back there. So it's such a good opportunity for all those guys just to be able to put their work on display and show all that they've been working on throughout the offseason.
What do you miss by not having TJ out here?
Nothing really, because we know what he's doing. We know that guy's working right now as we're talking, you know what I mean? So we don't really have to worry about that with him. When he gets here, we know he'll be ready, and anything else is good for everybody else.
TJ at the end of the season, and Alex last week brought up to us, like, hey, we're talking about moving guys around a little bit more, switching up where our angles are coming from. How much change does that require from you guys as a plan to try to implement that more throughout the season?
It just requires being thoughtful about what we do each week. It's something we always talk about every week, trying to get to the best matchup. TJ's most comfortable on the right side. Got over 100+ sacks over that side, so I don't blame him for being over there. But as flexible as we can be as a front is always going to help us anyway.
When it comes to trying to figure that chemistry out in also different angles, how much does improving the run defense change up what you guys can do on third down as far as being aggressive?
Man. The more our run defense is if it's at the top of the league, that's more we're going to get more passes. Excuse me, Teresa. We're going to get more passes. So the better we can be at stopping the run, it's just only going to help us on third downs, get us in third longs, and we can really pin our ears back.
Is TJ keep in touch with you guys when you're, in terms of?
Yeah, he's very. We talk to him all the time. He's great. Like I said, we know what he's doing. He's working, and whenever he gets out here, we know what he's going to give us.
So there you have it. Like you hear, he's like not Denzel Martin, not worried at all. just be like, he'll be here. And like when he does, we'll work on things. There is a sense of confidence there. And when I also brought up last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever we talked to Alex Highsmith during OTAs, same sort of confidence, like not even like, I don't know, or like with Aaron Rodgers, there was like, I don't know what's going on there. Like, I'm not going to comment on it. But these guys are commenting on it. They're very confident that he's going to be there. And to your point, Nick, yeah, I think there could be some, some interesting negotiation things that happen that, make things, but I'm about 98% sure that come September, whatever their first game is, TJ Watt will be on the field wearing 90, playing against the Jets, and it will be in the fold with Alex Highsmith and reared up, ready to go. And Mike Tomlin brought this up in his own comments when someone asked, like, with TJ, this is uncharted. He was like, we've been here before. Like, we've done this. Like, he literally did a hold-in back in 2021 and then, didn't practice all offseason and then showed up ready to go and then literally tied the NFL sack record. And granted, that was, 26-year-old Watt or 27, however old he was back then. And this is 30-year-old Watt. But, I'm kind of understanding that, like, hey, contract negotiations happen. Business is going to be a thing. But I don't think the Steelers fans who are saying, oh, they're going to trade him or they're going to this, none of that is going to happen.
No, I don't see that happening. I don't. I think if you want to have a conversation about timing of contract, I think that's a realistic one. That's the one we've been having. Should they have gotten it done earlier? J.J. Watt said, they should have gotten it done last offseason, which I think is interesting. When you think about the Ravens, they're going to extend Lamar probably again this offseason. Just getting ahead of things, getting your hometown discounts. That's kind of how you do it. I do think there's a discussion to be had. Maybe the Steelers should start doing that. But I do think this is like a non-issue in terms of like, is it going to get done? Like, I don't see a scenario where he's traded. I don't see a scenario where he's not on the field week 1. Like, he's going to show up at some point. And so I don't know. I'm not really, worried about anything in that regard. But I do think there is a realistic discussion to be had about how should the Steelers approach contracts in the top of the market when there's other players that are going to come potentially to usurp those. I think that is an interesting discussion. But, you mentioned Denzel saying that. Herbig was the same way today. I'm not sure if you talked with him. Mike T was the same way today. Jeff Hathorn from 93.7 The Fan literally asked, is there any worry about TJ's future in Pittsburgh? And he just looked at him and went, no. So there's no worry, I think, here about TJ Watt's future. He's going to be a Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to be a one helmet guy, as they say. It's just going to be how do they get there and how rocky is it? But much will be made about it. But I don't think much is going to matter in terms of if it will happen.
There you have it. Nick, thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. So people can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Farabaugh FB, Blue Sky Nick Farabaugh. Make sure to read the Steelers stuff, PennLive.com/Steelers, and then check out the YouTube channel, The Steelers Blitz on Penn Live.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nick, for joining us. And thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, all the social media, same handle everywhere. It's at Carter Critiques. You can read my work in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. You can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're back here tomorrow with another episode as minicamp continues right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.